Hey there, everybody. Third chapter, talking about content. One of the great quotes that he pulls out from Crush It is the very beginning. It says, to monetize your personal brand into a business using social marketing networks, two pillars need to be in place: product and content. And this is where he talks a little bit about the common phrase that he's talked about: document, don't create. So it helps remove a lot of that pressure that you have to have all these creative juices flowing in order to have years upon years of content. And so it's the idea that if you find yourself too young, you find yourself inexperienced, that people like to see you go through the mix of things. They like to see the struggle. They like to see you go learning things. If you'll find that the how-to industry sometimes trumps the actual industry. So for example, for those of you that are a little bit older, TV guides actually made more profits than the networks of CBS, NBC, Fox, because people wanted to know exactly what was on television before obviously digital guides came about. And so the TV guide just pulled in a ton of dough. Plus they didn't have to spend a lot of money in creating content, which is exactly what CBS, NBC was doing. And then in this, when it comes to talking about documenting, it still comes down to, do you have the talents? Do you have the ability to actually grab people's attention? The other thing that he talks about when it comes to documenting is making sure that it's of decent quality. It's to avoid perfection, because I think sometimes that holds people back, is that they want this perfectly choreographed video or picture, perfect lighting and angles. And the reality is that as you're building up your client base or you're building up your followers, they don't really care. They know that you might be, if you're documenting, you're just showing people how you go through that process. It's like how I could earn $100,000 selling stuff on Etsy, how I could earn $100,000 on, and you pick the numbers, you pick out what you're trying to do. And he uses just an amazing example in here. I'm going to tag him in the link below. Rich Roll Enterprises LLC. And so Rich was a very successful swimmer in college, swam for Stanford, then graduated from law school in 1994, was at an amazing law firm, but all the work, all the junk food over the years, he packed in some extra pounds, and all of a sudden he found himself grasping for air to get around. And so he realized almost overnight he basically changed his diet, became a vegetarian, and started running. And then 2 years later, with the help of his wife, he was doing a bunch of ultra marathons, triathlons, and really started building out his network. Used Twitter, had Facebook, had MySpace, and then he got seen when he was doing a race by CNN's Dr. Sanjay Gupta, and all of a sudden he, literally the night before he was going on for the interview, he's like, this is gonna be seen by a ton of people. I need to make sure that I got something that people could buy on. So he literally makes a $9 vegetarian cookbook, and then makes another book. And through this entire process, it talks about how it didn't happen overnight. It was years of struggling and getting it up and doing the podcast and getting the listeners. And his pillar was his spouse. She was able to see what he was building and kept him continue to go forward through it. And even talks about the house being close to foreclosure, getting a car repossessed. Just an absolutely phenomenal story, because I think sometimes they see, obviously if you look at Rich Rolls now, you see this trappings of success on the outside, but you don't know the story, that it wasn't an overnight success, that there was sometimes where there was movement forward. It seemed like there was some traction, and then things got pulled back, and it didn't go as smoothly as he wanted it to. And obviously, you learn from mistakes in regards to how he could have built it differently. And obviously I think he's still in the top 10 Apple podcasts that exist right now, particularly, especially in that arena. So, one of the quotes that he finishes off with, because he ended up in September of 2017 doing one of the greatest swim run world championships, meant to be considered one of the most difficult endurance events in the world. And the quote that he says at the end is, the main thing is realizing that even though you feel terrible for a while, that's not how you're going to feel the entire time. Things change if you just keep moving. And that's exactly a great summary of exactly what you're doing when you're starting to build out your own business. Sherm's out.